It starts with an accusation, simple, chilling, and dangerous. A pointed finger, a whispered name, a claim of witchcraft. What followed was chaos, paranoia, and one of the darkest chapters in human history. But what's the real story? Who were the so-called witches, and why did society turn on them with such brutal ferocity? The most infamous trials took place in Salem, Massachusetts, in 1692, but the roots of witch hysteria stretch much further back, across continents and centuries. Let's start at the beginning. The term witch dates back to Old English, but the fear of witches? That stems from a mix of religious fervor, political power plays, and cultural superstition. In medieval Europe, witchcraft was often associated with heresy, a direct challenge to the authority of the church. As Christianity spread, pagan practices, herbal medicine, midwifery, and ancient rituals were recast as satanic. Suddenly, people who had once been healers were feared as agents of the devil. Then came the hammer that would spark centuries of persecution. Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches. Published in 1487 by two Dominican monks, this book was a how-to guide for identifying, interrogating, and executing witches. It labeled witchcraft as a diabolical threat to Christian society and provided justification for brutal inquisitions. Thousands were accused, tortured, and executed based on flimsy evidence and coerced confessions. But the Salem witch trials, they weren't born of religious fanaticism alone. They were also a product of fear, greed, and deep-seated societal tensions. In the winter of 1692, in a small Puritan settlement, strange things began to happen. A group of young girls claimed to be afflicted by a mysterious illness. They convulsed, screamed, and made wild accusations, naming women in the town as the source of their torment. The names included Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, Sarah Osborne, an elderly outcast, and Tituba, an enslaved woman of indigenous and African descent. All three were easy targets, marginalized figures who couldn't defend themselves against the growing hysteria. What followed was a frenzy. More accusations, more arrests. The court admitted spectral evidence, meaning visions or dreams were considered proof of guilt. If someone claimed to see your spirit tormenting them, you could be condemned, even if you weren't physically present. Logic and reason had no place here. 19 people were hanged. 5 others, including an infant, died in prison. One man, Giles Corey, refused to plead and was pressed to death under heavy stones. His last words as the weight crushed him were defiant. More weight. Their deaths were senseless, and their trials were a travesty of justice. But why? Why did this happen? Historians believe it was a perfect storm of social and political unrest, economic hardship, and deep-seated fears. Salem was a fractured community, divided by old grudges and disputes over land. The Puritan lifestyle was strict, with little room for joy or individuality, creating a pressure cooker for resentment and suspicion. And here's the twist. The Salem trials didn't end because people saw the error of their ways. They ended because the accusations got too close to people in power. When the wife of the governor was named as a witch, the court began to reconsider its methods. Trials were halted, and the use of spectral evidence was condemned. But by then, the damage was done. The Salem witch trials are just one example of witch hunts that span centuries and continents. In Europe, the death toll was far higher, with estimates suggesting tens of thousands, mostly women, were executed. But these trials weren't about magic. They were about control. They were about fear of the other, fear of change, fear of anything that didn't fit within the rigid structures of power. Today, we look back and wonder, how could this have happened? But the truth is, witch hunts never really disappeared. They've just changed forms. Injustice, hysteria, and scapegoating still exist, whether it's in the courtroom, the media, or online. The real story behind the witch trials isn't just about the past. It's a cautionary tale for the present. It reminds us of the danger of letting fear override reason, of turning on our neighbors instead of seeking to understand them. It's a reminder that the real magic is in our ability to grow beyond the darkness of history, to learn from it, and to never let it repeat. What do you think? Are the witch trials just a relic of the past, or do their echoes still haunt us today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of the strange, the dark, and the fascinating.